My husband pretended to be drowning in debt and asked for a divorce. I pretended to be heartbroken and signed the papers. As soon as the ink was dry, he ran off to marry his mistress. The next day, my lawyer called. "Ma'am," he said, "you are about to inherit $100 million. A husband fakes bankruptcy to force his wife into signing divorce papers, aiming to escape his responsibilities. But just after the divorce is finalized, he rushes to marry his lover. At that very moment, however, a lawyer appears unexpectedly. Congratulations, ma'am. You are the sole heir to a fortune valued at $100 million. Life turned on a dime overnight, and the revenge began here. I pulled the bubbling beef casserole from the oven. The gentle heat had kept the meat succulent, infused with the savory notes of garlic, herbs, and a rich red wine sauce. The delicious aroma filled the small kitchen of our Boston brownstone, mingling with the scent of the creamy tomato soup simmering on the stove. Today, Ethan had said he had an important meeting with a business partner and would be late for dinner. I knew he'd been working hard lately, so I had taken special care to prepare a meal of all his favorite comfort foods, hoping that when he came home, he would feel the warmth of a loving home to soothe him. In 5 years as his wife, I had grown accustomed to being in the background, the solid foundation upon which he could build his success in the world. In this house, from the dishes and silverware to the curtains in the living room, everything had been chosen and cared for by me. My mother-in-law, Sharon, though not a woman of many sweet words, always boasted to visitors about her organized and capable daughter-in-law. I thought life would continue on like this, serene and predictable, a husband and wife who, together, could face anything. I didn't desire great luxuries, only a peaceful home. At night, the family gathered around a table with a hot meal was enough to make me feel fulfilled. The clock struck 7 in the evening. I set the table, waiting only for Ethan to arrive so we could eat. But instead of the familiar sound of his car, I heard the doorbell ringing insistently. How strange, who could it be at this hour? I quickly wiped my hands on my apron and went to open the door. Standing before me was Ethan, but not the smiling, vibrant Ethan I knew. His face was pale, his eyes avoiding mine. And beside him stood a stranger, a man in his 40s with a menacing air, dressed in black from head to toe. The man looked me over with a cold, appraising gaze that sent a shiver down my spine. "You're back?" "Dinner's ready," I said, trying to keep my voice normal, but a terrible feeling had already taken root in my heart. Ethan didn't answer. He brushed past me and went straight to the living room. The other man followed him in silence. Ethan dropped onto the sofa, his head in his hands, letting out a heavy, desolate sigh. My heart pounding, I closed the door and followed them. "Ethan, what's wrong? Who is this gentleman?" I asked timidly. Ethan lifted his head, his eyes red as if he'd been crying. He gestured toward the other man with a hoarse voice. "Abigail, this is Mr. Davis. I'm sorry. My business. It went under. I owe him a lot of money." My heart skipped a beat. I sat down beside him, holding his trembling arm. "How much is a lot, Ethan? Tell me. We'll find a solution together." The man named Davis spoke suddenly, his voice low and threatening. $500,000, principal and interest. The papers are all signed. Today is the final deadline. If Ethan doesn't pay, don't blame us for getting rough. $500,000. The number hit me like a sledgehammer. $500,000. Even if we worked our entire lives, we could never save that much money. I felt the floor give way beneath my feet. How? How is that much money even possible? Your work was always going so well. Ethan shook his head, his voice filled with despair. I hid it from you. I invested in a project I thought would be a huge success, but I lost everything. Now they've come to collect. They won't just come after me. They'll bother you and our family. I can't drag you down with me. I started to panic. So what are we going to do? Sell the house? Borrow from family and friends? It's too late for that, Ethan interrupted sharply. He looked me straight in the eye, a strange look I had never seen in the 5 years we'd been married. There's only one way to protect you. He paused, then uttered the words I never in my life imagined I would hear. Let's get a divorce. The word divorce left his mouth so easily, but it landed on my chest like a boulder, stealing the air from my lungs. All the sounds around me faded away, leaving only the frantic pounding of my own heart. What are you saying? I stammered. A divorce. Only with a divorce will this debt not affect you. I'll take full responsibility. This house, all our savings, I'll leave everything to you as compensation for my mistake. Abigail, please, sign the papers. It's the only way you'll be safe. He spoke with such nobility, such self-sacrifice, but for some reason, deep in my heart, I felt a chilling falseness. A husband who truly loved his wife, even in the face of the greatest adversity, would find a solution with her. He wouldn't push her away so hastily, as if she were a burden. Mr. Davis, sitting across from us, tapped his fingers on the coffee table, impatient. "So, Mr. Miller, does your wife agree? My time is limited." Ethan, as if cornered, turned to me, almost pleading. "Abigail, please. I'm asking you one last time. Sign." He pulled a set of already prepared papers from his briefcase, the divorce agreement. All the clauses were clearly defined. The marital assets, the house, would go to me. The debts would be his sole responsibility. Everything was prepared with an unnerving precision, as if he had planned this for a long time. My mind went blank. I looked at the man I had loved and cared for with all my heart for 5 years, who was now pressuring me to sign a divorce paper to protect me. Tears threatened to fall, but I swallowed them. I glanced at the hot dinner, now growing cold on the table, and my heart ached. "Okay," I whispered, my voice raw. "I'll sign." I took the pen, my hand shaking so badly I could barely control it. Every stroke of my name on the paper felt like a knife cutting into my heart. Abigail Thompson. The 2 words I had used to join my life to his were now being used to end everything. After signing, I dropped the pen, feeling completely drained. The moment I set it down, I saw Ethan's eyes flash with a strange light. The expression of pain and anguish from moments before had suddenly vanished. He hastily grabbed the papers from my hand, checking the signature as if he feared I had written it wrong, then carefully placed them back in his briefcase. His face relaxed into an expression of relief that he couldn't hide, despite his attempts to look sad. "Abigail, I'm sorry. From now on, you'll have to take care of yourself," he said. But his tone was rushed, devoid of any attachment. Mr. Davis stood up as well. His threatening demeanor was gone, replaced by a knowing, sideways smirk. He clapped Ethan on the shoulder. "Job's done. Let's go. We won't bother the lady anymore." The 2 of them turned and walked out without a single look back. Ethan didn't even glance at me one last time. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone in the cold house with the untouched dinner. The familiar smell of the casserole now seemed bitter and ironic. It all happened so fast, so suddenly, that I still couldn't believe what had just transpired. A few hours ago, I was a happy wife waiting for her husband to come home to a family dinner. Now I was a woman abandoned by her husband over a supposed debt. A doubt crept into my mind. I felt that something wasn't right. Despite the panic, my intuition told me this was more than just a simple case of bankruptcy. I stumbled to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough to peek out, and the scene I saw left me frozen. In the street below, Mr. Davis wasn't leaving immediately. He was standing beside a sleek black sedan that was waiting for him. Ethan hurried out of the building, and from the passenger side of the car, a young, beautiful woman emerged. She wore a tight red dress, her hair in voluminous waves, her makeup flawless. She ran to embrace Ethan, smiling radiantly. Ethan pulled the divorce agreement from his briefcase, showing it to the woman as if it were a trophy. The girl looked at the paper, let out a squeal of joy, and on her tiptoes, planted a loud kiss on Ethan's cheek. The 2 of them hugged, laughing and talking, their faces glowing with happiness, a stark contrast to the drama of suffering Ethan had just staged in front of me. Then they got into the car together, which sped off, disappearing into the city traffic. I stood paralyzed by the window, my hands gripping the sill so tightly my knuckles turned white. An arctic chill ran down my spine, settling deep in my heart. It wasn't the pain of a betrayed wife, but the overwhelming fury of someone who had been deceived, treated like a fool. So that was it. The whole thing was a well-rehearsed play. There was no bankruptcy, no protection, no sacrifice, only betrayal and lies. He wanted to leave me for that woman, but afraid of having to divide our assets, afraid of the mess of a normal divorce, he invented this story of a colossal debt to force me out with nothing, and on top of that, to make me feel grateful for him saving me. The anger didn't turn into tears, it solidified into a hard, cold stone in my chest. I didn't cry, not a single tear. I just found it ridiculous. Ridiculous for the 5 years of my youth. 5 years I had sacrificed, dedicated to caring for him and his family, only to receive such a painful deception in return. The dinner I had so lovingly prepared for him now seemed like a farce. I turned and looked at the house I once considered my home. Everything was the same, yet it all felt so alien. My love, my trust, had been trampled without mercy. "All right, Ethan Miller," I whispered to the empty room. "If this is the game you want to play, then I'll play with you. If you wanted me to disappear cleanly from your life, then I'll show you that my disappearance will be the biggest nightmare of your life." I went to the table, picked up the bowl of now cold tomato soup, and poured it directly down the kitchen sink. The cold water washed it all away, just as it washed away the weak, understanding Abigail of yesterday. From this moment on, there would only be an Abigail who knew how to reclaim what was hers. I didn't sleep that night. I sat alone in the dark, staring out the window, my mind racing with plans for revenge. The initial pain had subsided, leaving only fury and an ironclad determination. I would not let that adulterous pair live peacefully and happily at the expense of my sacrifice and naivete. The next morning, still exhausted from a sleepless night, the phone rang. It was my mother-in-law, Sharon. I took a deep breath, modulating my voice to sound tired and sad before answering. "Hello, Sharon," I murmured. "Abigail, honey. Ethan already told me everything. My poor girl, what a sad fate. To marry a worthless man who gets into such bad business that he has to get rid of his wife this way." Sharon's voice on the other end of the line sounded sympathetic, but I knew all too well that on the inside, she was celebrating. She never liked me. She always thought I wasn't good enough for her golden boy. "I'm okay, Sharon," I forced myself to sound weak. "Well, the divorce is for your own good, too. Staying and taking on his debts would only bring you a lifetime of suffering. You're young, you can still get married again. Stay in the house, don't go anywhere. The house Ethan left you is the right thing to do. I'll talk to him. I won't let him bother you anymore." She spoke without pausing. It seemed like she was consoling me, but she was really confirming if the house was truly mine and warning me not to cause problems for her dear son. Soon after, my sister-in-law, Jessica, called too. Her voice didn't need to feign anything, it was filled with satisfaction. "Abigail, I heard what happened. Don't be sad, okay? My brother was a fool, but at least he still thought of you. He didn't drag you into the mud with him. Don't worry. If you need anything, just let me know. I'll help in any way I can." "Help?" I scoffed internally. This girl, who had always been asking her brother and me for money, was now talking about helping. She was surely ecstatic to finally be rid of me, a thorn in her side. After these 2 calls filled with falsehood, I felt more disgusted than ever with that family. A bunch of hypocrites who only knew how to act to get what they wanted. I was about to turn off my phone to get some peace when an unknown number called. It was a landline from a downtown Boston number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Hello? Who is this? Good morning. Am I speaking with Miss Abigail Thompson?" A man's voice asked, formal and polite. "Yes, this is she. Who's calling?" "Good morning, Miss Thompson. My name is Arthur Sterling. I'm a lawyer with Sterling and Associates. I'm calling you on behalf of a deceased client in accordance with her last will and testament." "Lawyer? Will?" I was perplexed, unable to imagine what connection I could have with those 2 words. I had no wealthy relatives who would need a will and a private lawyer. "Are you sure you have the right person?" "I don't know anyone." "No, ma'am, there is no mistake. I am calling to inform you that you have a great-aunt named Eleanor Lockwood, who emigrated to Europe many years ago. She passed away last month. According to the legal will she left behind, you, Miss Abigail Thompson, are the sole and legitimate heir to all her assets." Eleanor Lockwood. The name sounded both familiar and strange. I think when I was little, I heard my parents vaguely mention a great-aunt who had gone to Europe as a young woman and had never been heard from again. I thought she had either passed away long ago, or had her own family and had forgotten her relatives in the States. "And what assets are we talking about?" I asked, still in a state of shock. Mr. Sterling paused briefly and then said a number that almost made me drop the phone. "Ma'am, after conversion and preliminary assessment, the total value of the assets, including real estate, stocks, and bank deposits, is approximately $100 million. $100 million. I sank into a chair, my head spinning. The number was so large it didn't even seem like real money. It was a concept too distant, too surreal. I, Abigail Thompson, the woman who had just been deceived and abandoned by her husband over a fake debt of $500,000, was about to possess a fortune 200 times that amount. The irony. The sheer absurdity of it. "Miss Thompson, are you still there?" Mr. Sterling's voice brought me back to reality. "I'm here. I can't believe it," I stammered. "I understand your surprise. According to her instructions, the first tranche of $20 million will be transferred to an account for you tomorrow morning, so you can manage your immediate affairs. The remaining asset transfer procedures will be carried out subsequently. Additionally, in her will, your great-aunt made a special request. All information regarding this inheritance must be kept in absolute secrecy and cannot be disclosed to anyone without your consent. Absolute secrecy. Those words were like an electric current running through my body. Yes, it had to be kept secret, especially from my ex-husband's family. They couldn't know. If they knew, they would come after me like a pack of hungry vultures. A cold smile formed on my lips. Ethan Miller, he discarded me for a non-existent $500,000. Chloe Vance, the mistress, intruded into my family for the promise of a life of luxury. His family, all of them, rejoiced at getting rid of a burden. And now, I had $100 million in my hands. The game was just beginning. Mr. Sterling, I said, my voice now completely calm. I understand. I appreciate the information, and please, remember my great-aunt's request for confidentiality, which is also my request. Absolutely no one can know about this, especially my ex-husband, Ethan Miller, and his family. Of course, ma'am. That is our professional duty. I hung up the phone and stared into the empty space before me. The tears finally fell, but they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of choked relief, of a new door that had just swung open. Life had slammed one door in my face, but it had opened a path 1,000 times wider. Ethan Miller, you are going to regret this. I swear you will. After that fateful call, I spent the day organizing my thoughts. The colossal fortune was still hard to grasp, but it gave me a newfound confidence and a solid foundation to start my plan. The first and most important thing was to continue playing the role of a pitiful, newly divorced woman, jobless, and penniless. The more pathetic I seemed, the more they would let their guard down. Just as Mr. Sterling had said, the next morning, a text from a strange, encrypted number arrived on my phone, informing me that a large sum of money had been transferred to a new bank account opened in my name. I didn't dare check it through the normal banking app, but I knew the promise had been fulfilled. I was no longer the empty-handed Abigail. As I was pondering my next steps, the doorbell rang again. This time, through the peephole, I saw my ex-mother-in-law and ex-sister-in-law at the door. Sharon was carrying a bag of slightly withered-looking oranges, and Jessica was looking around curiously. I knew they weren't here with good intentions. I opened the door, forcing a tired and disheartened expression onto my face. Sharon. Jessica, come in. Sharon entered, placing the bag of oranges on the table, with a voice full of false compassion. I came to see how you were doing, honey. You look so worn out. Well, what's done is done. Just consider your love story over. Jessica also chimed in, walking around the living room as if inspecting the property. The house is still so tidy. Don't you feel lonely here? Why don't you come live with us for a while, just for some company? I understood their intentions perfectly. They were afraid I would sell the house or bring another man here. They wanted to control me and this property. I shook my head, my voice weak. Thank you, Sharon, Jessica, but I prefer to be alone in peace. I'm used to this house. Sharon sat on the sofa, patted my hand, and got straight to the point. Look, don't be mad at me for saying this. That $500,000 debt. Even though Ethan took it all on, do you think the loan sharks will leave you alone? What if they come here to collect? You're a woman all by yourself, what would you do? How about you sign the house over to my name? I'll be the owner, just to protect you. If anything happens, as an older person, I can talk to them. As soon as everything calms down, I'll give the house right back to you. What do you think? I almost laughed out loud. What a sly old fox. She wanted to trick me into legally signing the house over to her. If I agreed, I was sure I would never see it again. I pretended to be scared, shrinking back. Oh, Sharon, I'm so scared. I don't dare deal with any papers right now. Ethan said the house was for me, surely they won't come looking for me. Seeing that I didn't fall into her trap, Sharon looked displeased but kept her voice sweet. I'm just worried about you. Think about it. After all, I've always considered you a daughter. And now that you've quit your job, how are you going to support yourself? Do you need any help? Jessica added, that's right, don't be shy. We're family. I knew this was another trap. They wanted to know if I had any savings left so they could take the rest. Thank you, Sharon and Jessica. I still have a little money put aside. It should last for a while. When it runs out, I'll look for a new job, I replied, trying to sound like I was genuinely struggling. Hearing my answer and seeing there was nothing more to extract from me, the two of them stayed a little longer and then left. Before leaving, Sharon didn't forget to remind me. Think about what I said. Everything I do is for your own good. I walked them to the door and slammed it shut as soon as they turned away. Their hypocrisy made me sick. For my own good? They only wanted what was good for themselves. As soon as they left, I called Mr. Sterling. Mr. Sterling, it's me, Abigail Thompson. Miss Thompson, do you have new instructions? Mr. Sterling, I need your help with something. Investigate what my ex-husband Ethan Miller and his mistress Chloe Vance are planning, especially regarding houses, cars, or any investment projects. Certainly, ma'am. I will begin the investigation immediately. And one more thing, I said, my voice turning cold, I want you to help me buy an apartment, the penthouse, the most beautiful and expensive one in the Avalon Grand development. The entire process should be done in the name of a private investment trust that you will create for me called the Lexington Trust. My name cannot appear anywhere. Mr. Sterling was a little surprised, but he quickly regained his professionalism. Understood, ma'am. Everything will be done according to your instructions. The Avalon Grand was the most exclusive luxury condominium in the city, a place for the upper crust. I remembered once, Ethan pointed to a billboard for it and told me, when I make it big, I'll buy you a place there. Now he was dreaming of it, but with another woman. Well, Ethan Miller, let's see what your reaction will be when your dream is stolen by the very wife you cast aside. My plan for revenge will begin precisely with your dream of luxury. A few days after that first call, I received a message from Mr. Sterling that simply said, I invite you for tea at the Courtyard Tea Room at 3 p.m. It was a small, quiet tea room on a side street in Beacon Hill, a completely unassuming place for a high-profile lawyer or a woman about to inherit millions. I understood his prudence, and it increased my confidence in him. I dressed in simple, discreet clothes, and took a cab to the agreed-upon location. The tea room was almost empty, with only soft ambient music playing. Mr. Sterling was already waiting in a discreet corner with a small file in front of him. Seeing me, he stood and greeted me with a polite nod. Miss Thompson, please, have a seat. I sat down, a little anxious. Do you have any information? Mr. Sterling pushed the file toward me. Ma'am, this is a preliminary report. According to our investigation, Ethan Miller is currently trying to finalize a smart home technology startup. He has invested all his capital and borrowed more money for the project. As for Chloe Vance, after they get married, she is pressuring him to buy a house. They have already visited several places, and their main target is the duplex penthouse in the central tower of the Avalon Grand. The first page of the file contained discreetly taken photographs of Ethan and Chloe, hand in hand, in the lobby of the Avalon Grand. Chloe's face was radiant, full of dreams. My heart no longer ached. I only felt a cold contempt. Her dream was being built on lies and the pain of another woman. That penthouse has not been sold yet, Mr. Sterling continued. The list price is $5 million. If you decide, we can move forward immediately. This is the incorporation document for the Lexington Trust. All your future assets can be registered under this trust to ensure privacy and security. I flipped through the document and nodded with determination. Go ahead, Mr. Sterling. Buy that penthouse immediately with a full cash payment. I want the entire process completed as quickly as possible, and remember, without revealing any information related to me. Mr. Sterling's eyes showed a brief flicker of surprise at my decisiveness, but he quickly took notes. Understood, ma'am. Everything will be handled with discretion and efficiency. Leaving the tea room, I felt my steps were lighter. The first move was made. I was setting a sweet trap, and my prey, drunk on their victory, had no idea. That night, as I was sorting through some old belongings, mentally preparing to shed the past, the phone rang again. It was an unknown number. I answered, and a shrill, conceited voice came through. Abigail? It's me, Chloe. I remained silent. This woman still had the audacity to call me. Seeing that I said nothing, Chloe became more confident, her tone becoming spoiled and showy. I just called to give you some good news. Ethan and I are getting a new house, a penthouse at the Avalon Grand, you know? It's beautiful. It has a rooftop garden with a view of the entire city. Ethan said he wants to make it up to me, to give me the best life possible. He even said that living with you was suffocating, that he couldn't achieve great things. Now, with me by his side as his inspiration, he can truly be himself. Every word she spoke was like a needle pricking at my pride, but strangely, I felt no pain. I just found it ridiculous. She was enthusiastically describing a dream that I had just bought. I forced a sigh into the phone. Oh, is that so? Congratulations to you both. Oh, come on, don't be sad, Chloe said, feigning consolation. It's fate, you can't fight it. By the way, Ethan also talked about you. He said that, after all, you were married, and if you have difficulties in the future, he won't stand idly by. He's such a good man, don't you think? I laughed with disdain. Yes, he's very good. Well, I won't bother you anymore. This weekend, we're going to put down the deposit. When we get the house, I'll invite you over to see it, so you can see what a real home looks like, she said and hung up, without waiting for my response. She was surely imagining my face contorted with suffering and envy, but she was mistaken. She didn't know she had just been boasting about an empty dream. That house, she would never have it, and I was going to make sure that this was just the beginning of her long series of disappointments. A few days later, I forced myself to leave the house for some fresh air. Being cooped up within four walls wasn't the solution. I wandered the familiar streets, my mind a whirlwind. I don't know how, but by some twist of fate, my feet led me to the area around City Hall. And that's when I saw them. Ethan and Chloe. Ethan was wearing an elegant suit and Chloe a pristine white dress, looking like a bride. They were coming out of the city clerk's office, hand in hand, holding two crisp marriage certificates. They both looked radiant with happiness. Chloe even held up the certificate, leaning her head on Ethan's shoulder to take a selfie. Their smiles were an affront to me. Just a week ago, in that very same place, Ethan and I had finalized our divorce. I quickly turned my face away, found a park bench in a corner of the square across the street, and sat down, pretending not to see them. I didn't want to confront them at that moment, but it seemed fate wanted to play a trick on me. After taking pictures to their heart's content, they walked towards the park, probably heading for the parking garage. Abigail? What are you doing here? Ethan's voice was a mixture of surprise and embarrassment. I slowly lifted my head, forcing a strained smile. Just taking a walk. Congratulations to you both. Chloe looked me up and down with a gaze that didn't hide her triumph. She deliberately raised the marriage certificate, flashing it in front of me. Thanks. We just made it official. From today on, we're husband and wife before the law. Ethan said this is the first gift he's giving me. The second will be the penthouse at the Avalon Grand. We're on our way to the developer's office to handle everything now. Ethan coughed discreetly, perhaps thinking Chloe was talking too much, but his gaze towards me was still full of a winner's conceit. Abigail, have you been okay? I lowered my head, pretending to look at my shoes. I've been. As usual. At that very moment, a luxury sedan pulled up in front of the park. The door opened, and Mr. Arthur Sterling, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, stepped out holding a dark blue leather portfolio. He looked around for a moment and then walked briskly in my direction. Miss Thompson, he said with an extremely respectful tone, completely ignoring the presence of Ethan and Chloe. I apologize for the delay. This is the final purchase and sale agreement for the Central Tower penthouse. The developer requires your final signature to complete the property transfer process. The payment has already been made in full. He opened the portfolio in front of me. The words purchase and sale agreement for the duplex penthouse and the name the Lexington Trust below it jumped out at Ethan and Chloe. The air around us suddenly became thick. The smile on Chloe's lips froze. Her eyes widened, fixed on the contract and then on me, with an expression of utter disbelief. The marriage certificate in her hand seemed to grow heavy, almost falling to the ground. Ethan's mouth fell open, his face changing color every second, from surprise to confusion, and then to suspicion. He stammered, "Lawyer. Avalon Grand. Abigail. What is this?" I calmly took the pen Mr. Sterling handed me, without even looking at the details of the contract, as I knew he had prepared everything perfectly. I signed my name in the field for the representative of the Lexington Trust. My signature was firm and decisive. After signing, I returned the portfolio to Mr. Sterling. "It's done. Thank you. This was a lot of trouble." "It is my duty, ma'am," Mr. Sterling nodded. "The legal documentation and the key will be delivered to you in the coming days. With your permission, I will take my leave." With that, he turned and walked away professionally, leaving behind a suffocating silence. Ethan was the first to break it. He pointed at me, his voice trembling. "Abigail Thompson, explain yourself. Where did you get the money to buy an apartment at the Avalon Grand, and the penthouse, no less? What game is this?" Chloe also seemed to wake from her stupor, screaming shrilly. "That's right, where did the money come from? Or was it Ethan who gave it to you behind my back? Ethan, tell me, did you give her money without me knowing?" I stood up slowly, brushing off my non-existent dust. I looked directly into Ethan's eyes and then at Chloe's face, contorted with rage. A faint smile appeared on my lips for the first time since the divorce. "Where did I get the money?" "I don't think that's any of your business anymore, is it, Ethan Miller?" I said, emphasizing every word. "We're divorced." "And you?" I turned to Chloe. You should ask your new husband what he promised you and whether he has the ability to deliver." With that, I didn't give them a chance to react. I turned and walked away calmly. Behind me, I could still hear Chloe's screams as she interrogated him, and Ethan's voice trying to explain himself hastily. I swear I didn't give her a dime. I don't understand what's happening either. Let them argue. Let them doubt each other. The seed of discord had been planted, and I knew it would soon germinate and destroy what they called love. The feeling of satisfaction from seeing the shocked faces of Ethan and Chloe lasted only a moment, quickly replaced by a cold calm. This was just the beginning. I knew that after today's shock, they wouldn't leave me alone. And just as I predicted, in the following days, my life began to experience subtle disturbances. First, an old mutual friend called me. After some pleasantries, she got straight to the point. "Hey, what have you been up to, living the high life? I heard from Ethan that you bought a penthouse at the Avalon Grand. You got rich and are hiding it from your friends?" I laughed softly into the phone with a tired tone. "Who told you that nonsense? I just got divorced. I don't have a job. I'm living at my parents' house. Where would I get the money to buy property?" Ethan must have been mistaken. He probably saw someone who looked like me. The more naturally I denied it, the more confused my friend on the other end of the line sounded. She hesitated for a moment and then hung up. I knew my denial would be relayed to Ethan, which would leave him even more confused and suspicious. A woman with nothing, why would she have a private lawyer and be signing a contract for a luxury property? This mystery would consume his mind. Next, it was my ex-mother-in-law and ex-sister-in-law's turn. This time they didn't come to my house. Sharon called me. The tone was completely different from usual. There was no longer arrogance or falsehood, but a certain curiosity and probing. "Abigail, I heard you won the lottery or something. Is that true?" "No. Why do you ask, Sharon?" I feigned innocence. "Well, Ethan told me he saw you with a lawyer signing papers for a multi-million-dollar house. If you had such good fortune, you should tell the family so we can celebrate with you. After all, we were family once." She was trying to sound close. That didn't happen. Ethan must be mistaken. "I spend my days at home, I don't go anywhere." "What lawyer? I don't have money to pay a lawyer." I denied everything flatly. I knew his family was in an uproar, unable to understand what was happening. My sudden wealth, if it were real, would be a great shock to them. They had discarded me like an old object, and now that object had the potential to shine brighter than anything they possessed. This made them simultaneously curious and furious. Meanwhile, I received a report from Mr. Sterling. Ethan and Chloe had a huge fight after the incident at City Hall. Chloe refused to believe that Ethan hadn't secretly given me money, and Ethan was desperate because he couldn't explain the situation. He even had someone discreetly investigate Mr. Sterling and the Lexington Trust. But of course, all his efforts were in vain. Mr. Sterling had created a perfect facade. The Lexington Trust was registered overseas with representatives who had no connection to me. All leads led to a dead end. The inability to uncover the truth made Ethan increasingly irritable. He began to take out his frustration on Chloe, saying that it was because of her demands that he was under pressure. Their relationship, built on material promises, was beginning to show its first cracks. I followed all these developments in silence. I didn't need to do much, just maintain my silence and let their suspicion and curiosity grow and consume them from within. My plan was proceeding as expected. I had taken away their biggest dream, and now it was time to target the foundation of Ethan Miller's self-confidence and arrogance, his startup project. One morning, I received the second file from Mr. Sterling. It was a detailed report on the smart home technology project Ethan was developing. As I flipped through the pages, a cold smile returned to my lips. It turned out that the project he was so proud of was just an empty shell. The report from Mr. Sterling was denser than I had expected, and every word exposed the weakness and delusion of Ethan Miller. His smart home project sounded impressive, but the technology was unoriginal, copied without any real innovation. The business model was unrealistic. To maintain appearances and keep the operation afloat, Ethan had spent all his initial capital and resorted to loans from loan sharks with exorbitant interest rates. The fictional $500,000 debt he had invented to trick me into the divorce was, it turned out, just the tip of the iceberg of his real debt. Most importantly, the report indicated that the survival of the entire project now depended on a single angel investor, a Mr. Wallace, who was about to inject a large amount of capital so Ethan could launch the product. Without this investment, Ethan's company would collapse within a month. Mr. Wallace. That was Ethan's Achilles heel. I picked up the phone and called Mr. Sterling, my voice firm. Mr. Sterling, I've seen the report. I want you to do 2 things. At your service, ma'am. First, find a way to approach the investor, Mr. Wallace. Not directly, but through a third party, like an investment consulting firm. Show him the risks of Ethan Miller's project, and at the same time, present him with a more attractive and secure investment opportunity. I don't care what the opportunity is. You can create one. The ultimate goal is to make Mr. Wallace back out of investing in Ethan. Mr. Sterling was silent for a few seconds, thinking, then replied, "That is feasible. We have financial analysis experts and the necessary network to do this naturally and without leaving a trail." Excellent. Second, I continued, use the name of the Lexington Trust to create a new technology company called Viridian Dynamics. Register it in the same line of business as Ethan's company. Then, contact the key employees working for him and offer them double their salaries. I want to gut his team completely. This time, Mr. Sterling couldn't hide the surprise in his voice. "Miss Thompson, you want to compete with him directly?" "I don't want to compete," I replied, my voice icy. "I want him to have nowhere to run. I want his life's project, his pride, to die at birth." Spread a rumor in the market that a major investor with unlimited capital is about to enter this sector. That rumor alone will be enough to scare off Ethan's other smaller partners. Understood, ma'am. It will all be taken care of immediately. The necessary costs will be deducted from your account. "No problem," I said and hung up. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the sky outside. The sun was shining, but my heart was cold as ice. What was I doing? I was becoming a calculating, scheming person. But then, the image of Ethan and Chloe, embracing and happy in the street, flashed back into my mind, erasing any hesitation. They didn't even give me a way out. Why should I have any mercy on them? The following days were a waiting game. I stopped caring about the probing calls from friends or the indirect remarks from Ethan's family. My mind was entirely focused on the chessboard I had set up, and the first piece of good news arrived. Mr. Sterling informed me that his experts had successfully convinced Mr. Wallace to postpone his investment in Ethan's company to reevaluate the situation. At the same time, Viridian Dynamics was officially incorporated and began its recruitment campaign. Ethan's chief technical officer and his head of sales were the first to receive job offers with irrefutable terms. A perfect trap was slowly closing. Ethan Miller, still enjoying his new life with his beautiful young wife, still dreaming of the day his project would succeed and he would move into his new home. He had no idea that a storm created by his ex-wife was silently gathering, about to sweep away everything he had. My silence was my most effective weapon. While I was quietly at home, reading, arranging flowers, and receiving regular reports from Mr. Sterling, the storm I had created began to brew outside. It started with whispers. Some of Ethan's company's suppliers received anonymous calls from consultants who insinuated that Viridian Dynamics was about to launch a superior product and that the financial situation of Ethan's company was alarming. At first, they doubted it, but when Ethan's star CTO and talented head of sales suddenly resigned and joined Viridian Dynamics a week later, panic set in. In the business world, news spreads faster than anything. The rumor began to circulate that Ethan's company was just a facade, that he was on the brink of bankruptcy. The remaining employees also grew restless. They saw the 2 pillars of the company leave, they heard about a powerful new competitor, and loyalty began to waver. Some of the smarter ones were already sending their resumes to Viridian Dynamics. The fall of a company often begins with the fall of confidence. And I had succeeded in destroying that confidence. At the same time, the creditors to whom Ethan owed money began to sense the danger. Mr. Davis, seeing that Ethan wasn't paying the interest on time, sent a few of his menacing-looking goons to Ethan's office for a courtesy visit. Although they didn't do anything serious, their presence was enough to spread a climate of fear and pessimism. Of course, Ethan hid this news from Chloe. He still tried to pretend that everything was under control, but he forgot that Chloe lived in a different world, a world of afternoon teas and social circles, where gossip was the main course. That day, while Chloe was getting her nails done at a luxury spa, her best friend whispered in her ear. "Chloe, how's your husband's business going? I heard the company is full of debt, and that even loan sharks have been there to collect. They're talking a lot about it in an online gossip group." I can imagine Chloe's face at that moment. It surely went from surprise to anger, and finally, to shame. What she feared most was not that Ethan would run out of money, but that she would lose face in front of her friends. She had boasted so much about her talented husband, her luxurious future, and now she faced the risk of becoming a laughingstock. That night, Chloe went home and confronted Ethan. Another violent argument erupted. Ethan vehemently denied everything, saying they were just rumors spread by the competition to bring him down. Chloe, hesitant, already had a heart full of anxiety. The dream of the Avalon Grand had already vanished, and now even her status as a CEO's wife was at risk. I, sitting in my old house with a cup of hot tea in my hand, calmly read the report Mr. Sterling had sent me. The report detailed the chaos in Ethan's company, his arguments with Chloe, the panic of his partners. Everything was happening exactly as I wanted. Ethan's ship was slowly sinking, and I wouldn't stop until it was completely at the bottom of the sea. My patience was finally rewarded. After the departure of the CTO and the head of sales, an employee close to Ethan, afraid that the company would go bankrupt and he wouldn't get paid, secretly contacted Viridian Dynamics. To please the new company, he handed over some important internal data, including access to an old work email account that Ethan no longer used but had forgotten to delete. And that's where I found what I needed. A scanned copy of the loan agreement between Ethan Miller and Mr. Davis, for the exact amount of $500,000, with the purpose clearly stated as personal loan, signed just 1 month before our divorce. This was it, the irrefutable proof, the proof that Ethan had lied. It wasn't a business loan, but for some personal purpose. And I knew that purpose was none other than to support Chloe and stage the divorce sham. With the proof in hand, I didn't act rashly. I knew Chloe was a superficial woman. What would make her crumble was not the truth itself, but the way the truth was revealed to her. It had to be unexpected, accidental, and hit her pride directly. I asked Mr. Sterling to have Chloe's routine monitored. Unsurprisingly, she spent most of her time in shopping malls, spas, and luxury cafes. She had a fixed habit of going for a skin treatment at the Anantara Spa on Newbury Street every Wednesday afternoon. It was the perfect moment. The plan was meticulously crafted. Mr. Sterling hired a private investigator, a middle-aged man with a weary and credible look, to pose as a courier. The $500,000 loan agreement was printed on high-quality paper and placed in an old-looking folder. That Wednesday, I sat in a cafe across from the Anantara Spa, watching in silence. Around 4 p.m., Chloe came out with a fresh, satisfied face after her beauty treatment. She was walking while fiddling with her phone, probably posting photos on social media. At that exact moment, the detective playing the role of the courier, carrying a stack of boxes, came out of an alley, looking rushed. He accidentally bumped into Chloe. "Hey," Chloe shouted, almost falling. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry," the courier said, flustered. The impact caused the old folder he was carrying to fall to the ground, scattering some papers on the sidewalk. Chloe, annoyed, was about to scold him when her gaze fixed on something. One of the papers had fallen right at her feet. The words, loan agreement, and the debtor's name, Ethan Miller, were printed in bold. The amount, $500,000, was written out in both words and numerals in a glaring red. The courier hurried to pick up the papers, apologizing profusely. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'm in a rush to make a delivery for my boss and I didn't see you. I apologize for the trouble." But Chloe wasn't listening anymore. Her eyes were glued to that paper. Although she had only seen it at a glance, Ethan Miller's signature was unmistakable. $500,000, personal loan. The signature date was before the divorce. All the details fit together, forming a terrifying truth. "What paper is that?" Chloe stammered, pointing to the ground. The courier looked embarrassed, quickly stuffed everything back into the folder, and clutched it to his chest. "Oh, it's nothing. Just some old papers from my boss. I have to go. Again, I'm sorry." With that, he hastily climbed onto an old scooter parked nearby and disappeared, leaving Chloe paralyzed in the middle of the sidewalk. Her beautiful face was now pale, devoid of blood, her lips were tightly pressed, and the hand holding her expensive phone was trembling uncontrollably. The suspicion that had been tormenting her for so long now had an answer, but this answer was more bitter and cruel than she could have imagined. After all, Ethan had not only hidden debts from her, but he had already owed an astronomical amount even before they were officially together. So what about the smart home project and the promise of a rich future? Was that all a lie too? Sitting in the cafe, I took a sip of bitter tea, watching Chloe walk away, stumbling. This game was getting more and more interesting. I knew that tonight, there would be a real hurricane in the house where they lived. And I would be the spectator, enjoying the sound of destruction. The hurricane arrived faster than I thought. Right after leaving the spa, Chloe didn't go home, she drove straight to Ethan's company office. At that moment, his company was in chaos, employees resigning en masse, suppliers demanding payments, and the key investor gone. Ethan was sitting in his office, head in his hands, when Chloe burst through the door. "Ethan Miller, explain to me what this is." Chloe threw her designer bag onto Ethan's desk, her voice cracking, it was so shrill. "You've owed someone $500,000 since before you divorced your ex-wife. Why didn't you tell me?" Ethan jumped, paling at the sight of Chloe's fury. He stood up hastily, trying to calm her down. "Chloe, calm down. Where did you hear that nonsense? There's nothing like that." "Nonsense? I saw your loan agreement with my own eyes." Chloe screamed. "Don't think I'm stupid and easy to fool. Tell me, what did you borrow that money for? Was it to give to your ex-wife, or did you use it to support me? To paint this picture of a rich, fake future?" Hit right where it hurt, Ethan was speechless. He hadn't expected Chloe to find out about that. "No, it's not what you're thinking. It was money I borrowed to invest in the business. It's work stuff, you wouldn't understand." "Business?" Chloe laughed bitterly. "Business that led the company to this state of near bankruptcy? The employees are all gone. The loan sharks are knocking at the door. Look at your office. It looks like a disaster zone. You deceived me." Their argument became so loud that the few remaining employees in the office could hear everything. At that moment, an employee's phone buzzed. She looked at it, covered her mouth in shock, and showed it to her colleague. A short video was going viral on social media. The video showed a few tattooed men at the door of Ethan's company, shouting and demanding money. In the background, the company's sign looked decrepit. Chloe saw it and snatched the phone. Upon seeing the images, her face lost all its color. It was a public humiliation. Her friends, her family, everyone would see it. They would laugh at her, the woman who had abandoned everything to follow a man of empty promises. "Ethan Miller." Chloe threw the phone to the ground, where it shattered. "You are a scoundrel, a liar. Where is the penthouse at the Avalon Grand? Where is my life of luxury? What you promised me? Now, I don't even have my dignity left." Losing her cool completely, Chloe started scratching him and destroying everything on Ethan's desk. Files, the computer, glasses, everything flew to the floor. Ethan, who was already under pressure from all sides, being humiliated in front of his employees, also lost control. He pushed Chloe hard, shouting, "Shut up. What do you know? If it weren't for you, always demanding luxury houses and expensive cars, always pressuring me, do you think I'd be in this situation? You only know how to take. Have you ever shared the burden with me? You dare say it's my fault?" Chloe was stunned. "You blame me? You deceived me from beginning to end, and now you blame me?" "Yes, it's your fault." The two got into a fight. It was no longer an argument but a violent physical and verbal brawl. The sweet words of love from before turned into the most venomous insults. The employee from before quickly recorded the whole scene. That night, I received an anonymous email. Attached was the full video of the battle in Ethan's office with the message, "Miss Thompson, I am a former employee of your ex-husband. I couldn't stand his hypocrisy anymore. I wish you all the best." I watched and rewatched the video. My heart was impenetrable. Everything was coming to an end for their relationship, but I knew there was still one last blow, one final truth to be revealed to put an end to it all. The truth about the real reason for our divorce. The relationship between Ethan and Chloe was irrevocably broken. Chloe had moved out of Ethan's house, but they hadn't officially broken up yet, due to financial issues and the promises Ethan still tried to use to keep her. It was the perfect moment for me to play my last card. I wanted Chloe to know that she wasn't the muse who inspired Ethan, but the reason he had to stage a despicable play to get rid of the wife who had stood by him through tough times. The person who could do this was none other than Mr. Davis, the one who had played the role of the creditor in Ethan's sham. Once again, I turned to Mr. Sterling. "Mr. Sterling, find a way to contact Mr. Davis. I have a proposal for him." Mr. Sterling, with his network, quickly found a discreet way to approach Mr. Davis. As it happened, Davis was also having a headache over the $500,000 debt that Ethan couldn't pay. When Mr. Sterling's intermediary found him, the proposal was simple and tempting. Someone wanted to pay off $100,000 of Ethan's debt in cash, immediately. In return, he just needed to do one very simple thing. In an accidental encounter with Ethan and Chloe, he was to let slip the story of how Ethan had asked him to fake a bankruptcy to divorce his ex-wife. That's it. What happened after was not his problem, and the person paying would never be revealed. For a loan shark like Mr. Davis, it was an irresistible deal. He recovered part of a high-risk debt and didn't get involved in any more trouble. He accepted immediately. The accidental meeting was set up at a quiet cafe where Ethan had arranged to meet Chloe for one last attempt at reconciliation. I wasn't there, but the entire sequence of events was recorded by one of Mr. Sterling's people sitting at the next table, who reported everything to me. While Ethan and Chloe were talking tensely, Mr. Davis entered the cafe. Seeing Ethan, he approached with a smile and gave him a friendly slap on the shoulder. "Hey, Ethan. Long time no see. Is this your girlfriend? She's a beauty." Ethan jumped, went pale, and tried to signal Mr. Davis to shut up, but it was too late. Mr. Davis continued in his loud voice, as if he didn't notice Ethan's embarrassment. "You're a lucky guy. You barely got rid of your ex-wife, and you've already found a stunner like this. I have to admit, the play we put on the other day was effective. Faking a debt solved everything neatly. This kid is smart." Every word from Mr. Davis was like a blow to Chloe's head. She turned, stunned, looking from Ethan to Mr. Davis and back. "Play? What play? What are you talking about?" Chloe's voice trembled. Mr. Davis then pretended to realize he had spoken too much. He scratched his head regretfully. "Oh. So the young lady didn't know. Oh, man. Ethan hasn't told you yet. He asked me to pretend to be a creditor and invent a $500,000 debt to scare his ex-wife so she would sign the divorce papers quickly. Oh, what a big mouth I have. Well, you two continue your chat. I'll be going." With that, Mr. Davis quickly disappeared, leaving behind a deathly silence. Chloe stood motionless, her face turning from white to purple. She turned slowly to Ethan. Her gaze was no longer one of anger, but of deep disgust and contempt. "Ethan Miller," her voice was cold as ice. "So that's what this was all about. You're not just a liar and an incompetent, you're a despicable scoundrel. You used a disgusting sham to get rid of the woman who stood by you. And I was the reason for that sham." She jumped up, grabbed the glass of water that was on the table, and threw it in Ethan's face. "Someone like you deserves nothing. From now on, between you and me, it's over. Never show your face to me again." With that, Chloe turned and walked away decisively, without looking back, leaving Ethan alone in the cafe, drenched, humiliated, and completely destroyed. Everything he had tried to build his career, his new love, his honor had all turned to dust in one afternoon. I received the news with a strange calm. The chess game was over. I sat in silence, holding the phone that had just received the final report on the incident at the cafe. The battle there had ended quickly with Chloe's decisive departure, but I knew another, longer, and uglier battle was just beginning within Ethan Miller's family. Mr. Sterling's report said that after Chloe left, Ethan remained paralyzed in the cafe for a long time. He didn't follow her, perhaps knowing that any effort would be futile. The humiliation, shame, and overwhelming failure were stamped on the face of the man who had once been so arrogant. He didn't go home immediately, he went to drink alone until he was completely drunk. When Ethan stumbled back to the house where he had lived with me, the place that was now supposed to be his home with Chloe, his mother and sister were already waiting for him. Sharon and Jessica must have heard about the argument at the office and Chloe's departure. They were waiting for an explanation. And when Ethan returned in that state of drunkenness and disarray, Sharon's fury exploded. "Look at you. Look at your state. My God, what a disgrace to have a son like you." Sharon screamed. The sweet words she used to protect her golden boy had disappeared. "You left Abigail, that good, hard-working girl, to go after that gold digger. Now she's left you. See? Have you opened your eyes yet?" Ethan, already dejected and drunk, became even more irritated hearing his mother's accusations. He shouted, "You don't know anything to talk. Don't you dare talk about her again. It's all her fault. She's the one who ruined me." "Ruined you? How?" Sharon didn't back down. "She stayed at home cooking, taking care of her in-laws, while you were running around with other women. Did she ruin you, or did you ruin yourself? Tell me, the company is failing. The new wife is gone. You're full of debt. What is your future? The future of this family?" Jessica, sitting beside them, also began to cry and lament. "Oh, Ethan, what now? Will the creditors come to our house? I'm so scared. If my friends find out about this, where will I hide my face? You only care about appearances." Ethan shouted at his sister. "When I had money to give you, why didn't you think about this day? Does anyone in this house actually understand me?" Their argument turned the house into a marketplace. Shouts, crying, tables and chairs being knocked over. They blamed each other, revealing all the selfishness and greed they had hidden under the facade of a loving family. Sharon blamed Ethan for his stupidity. Ethan blamed his mother and sister for being materialistic. Jessica cried and blamed her brother for ruining her future. I read every line of the report, imagining that chaotic scene, feeling no compassion. This was their true nature, a family built on selfishness and illusions. When the illusions crumbled, what remained was only ugliness and baseness. They were destroying each other, pushing each other into the mud pit they had created themselves. This was the real punishment, the punishment that came from those they once called their dearest. The storm in Ethan's family lasted for several days. Chloe, after leaving, also took her revenge in her own way. She took all the jewelry and designer bags that Ethan had bought her, and on top of that, she used his supplementary credit card to make a huge purchase before he could cancel it. It was the final blow from a materialistic woman, shearing the last bit of wool from an already shorn sheep. Ethan's company, after losing its investor and all key employees, couldn't hold on any longer. A week after the argument in the cafe, Ethan Miller had to declare bankruptcy. The title of young and talented CEO, which he was so proud of, was officially erased, replaced by a colossal debt and a history of failed business. This news was like a thunderbolt to Sharon and Jessica. Their last hope had vanished. Ethan's downfall meant that their source of income had also disappeared. The old family house became suffocating, filled with sighs and endless arguments. And then what they feared most happened. Some smaller creditors, unable to find Ethan, went to Sharon's house to pressure her. They didn't do anything violent, just stood at the door shouting, telling everyone that Ethan borrowed money and didn't pay. It was enough for the whole neighborhood to know. The shame was so great that Sharon didn't dare leave the house. Once, a more aggressive creditor threatened to enter the house. Sharon, in a panic, had to call the police. The incident made the family the center of the neighborhood's attention. In desperation and with no way out, they thought of me. My phone started ringing again. This time, they weren't calls of probing or false interest, but calls of panic. First, Jessica. Abigail, are you there? Help my brother, please. They came to our house to make a scene. My parents are so scared. You know so many people. See if you can help my brother. I replied coldly, Ethan's problems are no longer my concern, Jessica. He sowed the seeds, now he has to reap the harvest. But we were family, Abigail. When he and your whole family deceived me, did anyone think we were family? I said and hung up. Next was Sharon. Her voice on the phone no longer had any of a mother-in-law's arrogance, it was just a pleading cry. Abigail, my dear, I beg you, save Ethan, save this family. I know I was wrong. I was wrong not to treat you well. Forgive me. Help him just this once. If anything happens to him, I won't survive. I listened silently to her lamenting and crying, crocodile tears. If I were a poor and miserable woman now, would she shed a single tear of pity for me? Ma'am, I changed my address. What's past is past. I am no longer your daughter-in-law. I am just a normal woman with limited means. I can't help. Tell Ethan to find a solution himself. With that, I blocked both their numbers. The harassment had to end here. They had backed themselves into a corner. Now they had to face the consequences. But my plan wasn't over yet. They had caused me too much pain, and they would have to pay for every one of their actions. After cutting off all direct contact, I decided it was time to deliver a fatal psychological blow. I wanted them to live in fear, not the fear of loan sharks, but the fear of an invisible, powerful force they couldn't fight against. I gave instructions to Mr. Sterling. Mr. Sterling, in your capacity as legal counsel for the Lexington Trust, please call the landline at Sharon Miller's house. I insisted on the landline because I knew that in her house, the phone was always on speaker for the whole family to hear. The call was made one afternoon. Sharon was the one who answered. Hello, Miller residence. Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Arthur Sterling. I am the lawyer representing the Lexington Trust Investment Fund. Mr. Sterling's voice sounded professional, cold, and authoritative. I am calling to inform you and your family about matters related to your son, Mr. Ethan Miller. Hearing the words lawyer and the name of an unknown fund, Sharon was a little confused. Fund? What fund? What does my son have to do with it? Ma'am, during an internal investigation, we discovered that Mr. Ethan Miller illegally used the name of projects associated with our fund to raise capital from third parties. Furthermore, he was involved in non-transparent financial transactions, which seriously affected the reputation of our fund. We have proof of all these activities. Every word from Mr. Sterling was like a stone thrown into a calm lake. Sharon stammered. No, that can't be. There must be some mistake. My son is a good boy. He wouldn't do such a thing. Mr. Sterling completely ignored her justification. The Lexington Trust is not interested in whether there are mistakes or not. We work based on evidence. Due to Mr. Miller's serious infractions, our fund has decided to officially sue him in the commercial court for fraud and breach of trust. Additionally, we will send a notification to all our partners and banks to include Mr. Ethan Miller on the credit blacklist. My God, no, please, don't do that. Sharon cried out, desperate. A lawsuit. My son was reckless. Please, forgive him. Our family will compensate. We will pay. Ma'am, this matter goes beyond financial compensation. It involves the law and reputation. My communication ends here. I wish your family good luck. With that, Mr. Sterling abruptly hung up, giving them no further opportunity to plead or explain. I knew that after that call, Ethan's entire family would panic. They didn't know who the Lexington Trust was, nor its power. They only knew that their son had provoked a giant entity and that the consequence would be prison. As expected, just 15 minutes later, my cell phone, the number I hadn't blocked yet, rang. It was Ethan. His voice was no longer one of anger, but of extreme fear. Abigail, is that you? Are you behind all this? That damned Lexington Trust is yours, isn't it? You want to destroy me, don't you? I laughed with disdain. What are you talking about? I don't understand. You make messes and then you blame me? Don't pretend anymore, he shouted. Abigail and Lexington. If it's not you, who is it? I'm begging you, Abigail, I know I was wrong. Forgive me this one time. Tell me how much money you want. I'll work like an animal to pay you back. Just don't send me to prison, I'm begging you. In the background, I heard Sharon crying and Jessica screaming, why are you still calling her? She's the one who ruined our family. Then Ethan's voice yelling back, shut up. If we don't beg her, we're finished. A chaos of fear, recrimination, and desperation. I said calmly into the phone, Ethan Miller, you reap what you sow. Take care of yourself. And I hung up coldly. From now on, they would live in constant fear, never knowing when the court summons would arrive. They would never know that there would be no lawsuit. It was all a psychological blow I had reserved for them. But for them, this invisible threat was more frightening than any real punishment. After sowing fear in Ethan's family, I decided it was time to reclaim what was mine, fairly and squarely, not because I needed the money, but because I wanted to erase all traces of my contribution to that family. Contributions they never valued. I sat down and made a careful list, item by item, the 24-carat gold bracelet I bought with my savings to give Sharon for her 60th birthday, the $2,500 Jessica borrowed from me to buy a new scooter, promising to pay me back with her first paycheck, but never mentioned it again. The large screen TV and sound system in Sharon's living room, which I bought so everyone could see and hear better. The receipt was still in my drawer. And countless other small expenses I made to furnish and decorate their home during the 5 years I was their daughter-in-law. Expenses I never kept track of. In total, the sum was close to $15,000. For me now, it was a small amount, but for Ethan's family at that moment, it was a fortune. I sent the list to Mr. Sterling. Mr. Sterling, draft a formal letter to Sharon and Jessica, demanding the return of all these goods and money within 1 week. Attach copies of the receipts and transfer statements I have. Make it clear that if they don't comply, we will proceed with a complaint for breach of trust and misappropriation. Mr. Sterling acted quickly. The letter was sent by registered mail to Sharon's hands, and their reaction was not surprising. The first to call me was Jessica, her voice shrill. Abigail Thompson, are you crazy? Are you even human? You're coming to reclaim this junk? You want to destroy my family to be satisfied? That junk was bought with my hard-earned money, I replied calmly. I lent it to you, I didn't give it to you. The things I bought for your parents were in my capacity as a daughter-in-law. Now I'm no longer part of the family. It's normal that I want back what's mine. You have 1 week to prepare. I'm not returning anything. What can you do to me? She challenged. Then I'll see you in court, I said softly. Let's see if a single girl with a conviction for misappropriation on her criminal record can easily find a job or get married. On the other side of the line, total silence. I knew I had hit her weak spot. Jessica could be insolent, but she was terrified of damaging her future. Then came Sharon's call. This time, she was no longer crying or begging, but a mixture of laments and curses. Abigail. Oh, Abigail, how can you be so cruel? The bracelet I've been wearing for so many years is a memory. How do you have the heart to ask for it back? Aren't you afraid of divine punishment? "Ma'am, when you and your family conspired to deceive me, were you afraid of divine punishment?" I retorted. "I'm just asking for what's mine. You don't have to return it. But in that case, not only you and Jessica, but also Ethan will be implicated in the lawsuit. He already has problems with the law, but one more crime shouldn't make a difference, right?" My threat worked. The story of the Lexington Trust had left them terrified. Now, with another civil lawsuit, they had no strength to resist. Exactly 1 week later, on the last day of the deadline, a courier delivered a box to Mr. Sterling's office. Inside was the gold bracelet, a few other items, and an envelope with $2,500 in cash. As for the television and sound system, they asked to pay the value in installments. Upon receiving those objects, I felt no joy or nostalgia. I just found them ridiculous. I asked Mr. Sterling to immediately sell the bracelet and donate all the money to a charity for orphan children. I had completely severed all material ties with them. The debt between me and the Miller family was, from that moment on, settled. Now, all they had left was a pile of ashes of a career, a broken family, and an uncertain future. And for me, it was time to truly start a new life. The old objects and the returned money remained at Mr. Sterling's office. I didn't go to get them. I handled everything by phone. The gold bracelet, the one memory I had once been proud of, thinking I was loved by my mother-in-law, was now just a cold piece of metal to me, stained with falsehood. I asked the lawyer to sell it, along with other small pieces of jewelry. All the money raised, plus the $2,500 Jessica returned, I asked to be transferred directly to a school support fund for underprivileged children. I didn't need them. Keeping them would only bring back bad memories. I wanted to completely purify my past, to get rid of everything related to that family. My contributions over 5 years were not valued by them, at least they could be transformed into something meaningful for those who really needed it. After everything was settled, a silence fell. There were no more insulting calls, no pleas or cries. The Miller family seemed to have disappeared from my life. A few weeks later, Mr. Sterling sent me a final report, like a summary of a chapter that had ended. The report said that after having to scrape together money to pay me, Ethan's family was left completely destitute. Sharon's house had to be mortgaged to pay off the more aggressive creditors. Sharon's health deteriorated severely after the successive shocks. She spent most of her time in bed, sighing. Jessica, because of the family's bad reputation and fear of being harassed by creditors, hastily married a much older man from the countryside. A loveless marriage in exchange for temporary peace. As for Ethan Miller, he completely fell apart. He lost his company, his new wife, was rejected by his family, and pursued by loan sharks. He was now like a shadow. He was no longer at home. It was said that he had fled to a rural part of the country to hide from his debts, living a precarious life, moving from place to place. I read these lines with a strange calm. I felt no joy, no satisfaction, not even anger. I just felt an immense relief. All accounts were settled. They paid for their actions, not because I was cruel, but because their own greed and betrayal led them down this path. The old chapter of my life was officially closed. I looked around the house where I had lived for 5 years, a place filled with more sad memories than happy ones. It was time to leave. It was time to start a new life, a life that truly belonged to me. The penthouse at the Avalon Grand had all its paperwork in order. The keys and the deed were handed to me personally by Mr. Sterling, all in the name of the discreet Lexington Trust. I didn't move in immediately. I wanted my new home to be a completely different space, without any trace of the past. I hired the best architects and interior designers in the city. My request was simple. Transform this place into an elegant, welcoming space that reflected my personality. No more dark colors, heavy furniture to Ethan's taste, or corners decorated to please my mother-in-law. Everything, from the color of the walls and the fabric of the curtains to the design of the dining table, was chosen by me. I chose shades of cream, white, and mint green as the main colors, creating a sense of lightness and tranquility. I placed a grand piano in a corner of the living room with a view of the terrace. Although I didn't know how to play, I knew I would learn. I reserved a large room to be my library, with floor-to-ceiling wooden shelves filled with books I loved. The renovation process took almost 3 months, and it was 3 months in which I felt I was truly living. Every day I went to the site, personally choosing every little detail. It wasn't just building a house, it was me rebuilding my own life. On moving day, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't have many belongings to take from the old house. Most of the things there brought back bad memories. I packed only a few clothes, my old books, and photographs of my parents. I drove my new car, a luxury but discreetly designed sedan, to the old building one last time. I didn't go up. I sat in the car looking at the familiar window for a long time. There I had cried, laughed, dreamed, and despaired. Now all of that was behind me. I started the car, accelerated with determination, and entered the traffic, without looking back. The new penthouse welcomed me with abundant sunlight and an airy space that left me breathless. From the upstairs balcony, I could see a panorama of the sparkling city. That afternoon, after the housekeeper had put away the last things and left, I poured myself a glass of red wine. I stood on the balcony, feeling the cool breeze in my hair. At my feet, the city was lighting up, twinkling like a galaxy. I took a sip of wine, the slightly astringent taste spreading on my tongue. For the first time in my life, I felt such great peace and freedom, without having to wait for anyone, without having to please anyone. This life, from now on, was mine alone. My new life unfolded smoothly, and with purpose. The immense fortune did not turn me into a frivolous person. On the contrary, it gave me the opportunity to do things I had never dared to dream of before. I enrolled in a class for artistic floral arrangements, a tea ceremony course, and piano lessons. My afternoons, instead of being spent in the kitchen, were now dedicated to flowers of all colors, learning to feel the serenity in each cup of tea, or sliding my clumsy fingers over the piano keys. I also started swimming and took a diving course. I wanted to explore the world, to explore my own limits. I made friends with people who shared the same interests. They were independent, intelligent, and energetic women. They knew nothing about my past. They knew me only as Abigail, a single woman who loved art and travel. With them, I didn't have to be restrained, nor did I have to play any role. Occasionally, Mr. Sterling would call to update me on the status of my assets. The fund's investments continued to yield consistent profits. My account balance grew every day. Once, he informed me, hesitantly, "Miss Thompson, Mr. Ethan Miller's company has officially completed its bankruptcy proceedings. The remaining assets were sold to pay creditors and employees." "I see," I replied, my voice calm. That news no longer stirred any emotion in me. "And one more thing," Mr. Sterling added. "Mr. Miller's mother, Sharon, has tried to call the office several times asking for your phone number and address. She says she wants to find you to apologize. According to your instructions, we have refused to provide any information." "You did well. Keep it that way," I said. "That belated apology, I don't need it. Forgiving might be easy, but forgetting is not. I didn't want anyone from that family to disturb my peaceful life anymore." One afternoon, I drove past a luxury restaurant that Ethan and I used to only dare to look at from the outside. I parked the car and went in alone. I ordered the most expensive dishes, the ones I once coveted but didn't dare to dream of. The food was good, but that wasn't what made me happy. The happiness came from the fact that I could do it for myself, without depending on or waiting for anyone's charity. My life was now full of positive things. I learned to love myself, to take care of my own emotions. The scar on my heart might never completely heal, but it no longer hurt. It was there as a reminder of a naive past and the strength I have today. Time passed. A year had gone by since I moved into the Avalon Grand. My life had completely entered a new, peaceful, and independent orbit. One day at the end of the year, I went to the airport to prepare for a solo trip through Europe. While waiting in the business class lounge, I saw a familiar figure, Chloe. She no longer had the arrogant and dazzling air of before. The designer dress she wore looked old, and her hastily applied makeup couldn't hide her exhaustion. Alone, she was dragging a large suitcase, looking like she was struggling. Chloe saw me too. Her gaze went from surprise to envy, and finally, to shame and embarrassment. She quickly lowered her face, dragged her suitcase to a corner, and pretended not to know me. I smiled slightly and went back to reading my book. She and I were now in completely different worlds. The grudge, if it ever existed, had already dissipated. I no longer cared if she was well or not, because it no longer affected me. A few months later, at a high school reunion, I casually heard news about Ethan's family. A friend said, "You know that Ethan Miller? Nobody knows where he is. They say he went to work in the fields in some rural area, living in great difficulty. His mother is always sick after the shock, and his sister, who married far away, doesn't seem happy either, always arguing about money." The people at the table whispered, some lamenting, others saying it was his punishment. I listened, calmly sipping a cup of tea, without commenting. What they were, how they lived, was the path they had chosen. When they pushed me out of their lives so cruelly, they chose their own future. I no longer felt anger or satisfaction. My heart was serene and light. The Abigail of old, a woman who lived for her husband and his family, who always put others' happiness above her own, that Abigail was dead. The Abigail of today is a free, wealthy woman who knows her own worth. I have money, time, good friends, and most importantly, peace of mind. I look out the window, the city continues to shine. In the distance, the sky is beginning to blush, heralding a new day. My life is like a sunrise. After a long dark night, the sun has finally risen. And I know that my path ahead will be very long and full of light.